The cold from the stone floor traveled through the soles of Isidora's boots like a living thing. It climbed her legs, settled in her spine, wrapped itself around her ribcage until each breath felt like swallowing ice. She pressed her back against the weeping cellar wall, one hand splayed across the rough stone, the other curved protectively over the swell of her belly, where 6 lives shifted and turned in the darkness of her womb. 8 months. 8 months of carrying the future of the Northern Kingdom while watching the past crumble like ash between her fingers. Above her head, the floorboards groaned under the weight of measured footsteps. Military boots on ancient oak. The sound that had once meant safety now meant something else entirely. Isidora held her breath. Is the transport ready? The voice was cold, clinical. It belonged to Rowan, her husband's younger brother. The man who had held her hand at her wedding feast 7 years ago and promised to protect the crown to honor his brother's choice to serve the realm before self. Promises Isidora had learned were just words dressed up in ceremony. Yes, my lord. A second voice, rougher, belonging to Captain Varick, a man whose loyalty could be purchased with gold and the whisper of power. The carriage is hidden in the North Passage. The horses are muffled. No one will hear them leave. Good. Rowan's footsteps moved closer to the spot directly above Isidora's head. She could picture him there in the small antechambers off the Great Hall, the one with the wine cabinet and the maps, the one where her husband Cassian used to plan harvest routes and trade agreements. The plan remains unchanged. We move her to the reinforced cellar beneath the North Tower for first light. She stays there alive and healthy enough to birth those pups, but she never sees the sun again. Isidora's free hand flew to her mouth, pressing hard against her lips to trap the sound that wanted to escape. Not a scream, something smaller, something that might have been the death of hope. In the public story, my Lord Varick's voice held the careful neutrality of a man asking questions he already knew the answers to. By morning, the East Wing will be lost to fire. Rowan's tone shifted, and Isidora could hear the smile in it, the cruel, satisfied curve of a mouth that had kissed her cheek at family dinners and called her sister. A tragic accident, candles left burning in the Luna's chamber. The fire will be so intense, so complete, there won't be remains to recover. The kingdom will mourn. My poor deluded brother will finally break completely from the grief, and I will have no choice but to step forward as regent. And the heirs, Varick asked. The 6, I raised them. Simple, matter of fact, as if he were discussing livestock. Orphans rescued from the ashes by their devoted uncle. I'll present them to the kingdom when they're old enough, train them properly, shape them into the weapons this realm needs. By the time they're grown, they'll be mine. Loyal soldiers who never knew the mother who abandoned them in flames. The babies in Isidora's womb kicked hard against her ribs as if they could hear the words, as if they understood the cage being built around their future. She understood now. All of it. Why Rowan had insisted she move to the East Wing for her confinement. Why he'd dismissed her personal guards, replacing them with men who answered to him. Why he'd been so solicitous, so concerned about her health, bringing her special teas and insisting she rest. He didn't want her dead. Not yet. He wanted her erased. Turned into a ghost story, a tragedy, a convenient absence. And then he wanted her children, 6 royal-blooded wolf shifters, to rebuild the kingdom in his image, while she rotted in a hole beneath his feet. Above her, the conversation continued. What about the king? Varick's voice dropped lower. Cassian still has moments of clarity. What if he won't? Rowan cut him off. The silver dust I've been mixing into his wine for the past year has done its work. By the time the fire is discovered, he'll be so deep in the fog he won't remember his own name, much less his wife. The madness will be complete. The kingdom will see it as a mercy when I eventually suggest he be confined for his own safety. Silver dust. The words lodged in Isidora's chest like a blade between ribs. Not a natural illness. Not the mysterious madness that physicians had whispered about in corners, that healers had tried to cure with herbs and prayers. Poison. Deliberate, calculated, ongoing poison designed to sever an alpha wolf's connection to his own spirit, to turn a brilliant king into a hollow shell. Isidora had watched it happen. Day by day, week by week, month by month. She had held Cassian's hand through the tremors, had whispered his own name back to him when he forgot it, had traced the lines of his face with her fingers on the nights when he didn't recognize her, trying to remind his body of what his mind had lost. She had stayed, through every cruel suggestion from the council that she should step aside, that a mad king needed to abdicate, that perhaps the Luna should consider the good of the realm over personal loyalty. She had stayed because marriage vows weren't just words to her, because love didn't stop when things got hard, because Cassian, in his moments of clarity, would look at her with those deep green eyes and whisper, "Don't leave me in the dark, Issa. Please." And now she knew. The dark wasn't a disease. It was a weapon, and Rowan had been wielding it with surgical precision. The footsteps above her head moved away. Rowan's voice faded as he walked toward the door. "Begin preparations. I want everything in place by midnight. And Varric, make sure the guards on the east wing are men who understand the value of silence." "Yes, my lord." The door closed. The antechamber fell silent. Isadora stayed frozen against the wall for a count of 10 heartbeats. 20, 30, waiting to be sure they were truly gone. Then she moved. The cellar had been her discovery 3 years ago during the early months of her marriage, when the castle was still a mystery to explore rather than a prison to escape. A hidden access point to the old drainage tunnels that ran beneath the palace like veins beneath skin. She'd mentioned it to Cassian once, laughing about finding secret passages like something out of a children's story. He'd kissed her forehead and told her to keep the secret. "Every queen needs an escape route," he'd said, "even in peacetime." She'd thought he was joking. Now as she moved the heavy crate of old linens to reveal the narrow opening behind it, she understood he'd been preparing her. Even then, before the fog took him, some part of him had known that danger could come from anywhere, even from family. The tunnel entrance was barely wide enough for a grown woman. For a pregnant woman carrying 6 lives, it was almost impossible. But impossible was a luxury Isadora could no longer afford. She dropped to her hands and knees, ignoring the protest of her heavy belly, the ache in her lower back that had been building for hours. The emerald silk of her maternity gown, the one that had cost more than a farmer's yearly wages, caught on the rough stone and tore. The sound of ripping fabric was loud in the silence. Isadora didn't care. Silk could be replaced. Children couldn't. The tunnel was tight, airless, suffocating. The stone pressed close on all sides, scraping her shoulders, catching in her hair. Every few feet she had to stop, gasping for breath, fighting down the panic that wanted to close her throat. The babies kicked frantically, sensing her distress, their small movements, a constant reminder of what was at stake. She thought of them as she crawled. 6 little lives who didn't ask to be born into this. 6 wolf pups who should have been welcomed into a world of safety and love, not conspiracy and poison. She thought of Cassian alone in his chamber, staring at walls only he could see, his brilliant mind reduced to fog and fragments by his own brother's hand. She thought of Rowan's voice, casual as discussing the weather, planning her erasure like it was just another item on a list of daily tasks. And she kept crawling. The tunnel seemed endless. Her hands bled from the rough stone. Her knees screamed. The silk gown was in tatters now, hanging from her in strips. But finally, after what felt like hours, she saw it. A glimmer of moonlight through the drainage grate that opened into the palace gardens. The grate was old, rusty, designed to let water out, not keep people in. It took 3 hard shoves before it gave way with a groan of protesting metal. Isadora pulled herself through, emerging into the night air like something being born. The shock of cold hit her like a physical blow. After the closeness of the tunnel, the open air felt vast, disorienting. She lay in the damp grass for a moment, pulling oxygen into her lungs in great shaking gasps. Above her, the moon hung full and silver in a cloudless sky. The same moon she'd stood beneath with Cassian on their wedding night, making promises they'd both believed would last forever. The garden around her was familiar. She was in the east section near the lily beds. The flowers were closed now, sleeping through the dark hours, waiting for dawn. In summer, this place smelled like heaven. Now in the grip of early winter, it just smelled like cold earth and waiting. Isadora pulled herself to her feet, using a stone bench for leverage. Her legs shook. Every muscle in her body screamed. But she was out. She was free. And she had no idea where to go. The forest was her only option. The deep woods that bordered the palace grounds, the ones the servants called cursed, the ones where game disappeared and travelers lost their way. The woods that everyone avoided, which made them perfect. She took one step toward the tree line, then another. Her body moved on instinct, on the pure animal drive to survive, to protect the lives growing inside her. She didn't let herself think about what she was leaving behind. The life she'd built, the man she loved trapped in fog and lies, the crown she'd worn with pride. Issa. The voice stopped her like a hand on her shoulder. She turned. Cassian stood in the shadow of the east wing, barely visible in the darkness. He wore his sleeping robe, feet bare on the cold stone path. His hair was wild, uncombed. His eyes had that distant glazed quality that meant the fog was thick tonight. But he was looking at her, seeing her. Cassian. His name came out broken. She took a step toward him. Cassian, No. He held up a hand, and in that gesture she saw a flash of the man he used to be, the king who commanded armies with a word. Don't come closer. He's watching, always watching. I know what he's doing to you. The words tumbled out. The silver dust, the poison I heard him. I know. Cassian's voice was soft, sad. I've known for months. It comes and goes. In the clear moments I understand. But I can't stop it. Can't fight it. The silver burns through me, severs me from my wolf. I'm losing myself, Issa. Piece by piece, tears burned in Isidora's eyes. Then come with me. Now. We can run. We can... No. Firmer this time. He'll chase us both. He'll find us. And he'll kill you and take them. His gaze dropped to her belly. The 6. That's what he wants. The royal blood. 6 heirs he can mold and control. I won't let him have them. I know. Cassian smiled, and for just a moment he looked like himself again. You're stronger than both of us, my love. You always have been. That's why you have to go. You have to hide where he can't find you. I can't leave you here. The words came out as a sob. You already have. He said it gently without accusation. The moment you crawled through that tunnel, you made your choice. The right choice. The only choice. He took a breath, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight of absolute clarity. The silver flowers, Issa, where light meets shadow. Do you remember, she did, the hidden valley 3 days' journey to the north, the place they'd discovered together in the first year of their marriage, when everything was new and bright and possible. A valley that shouldn't exist according to the maps, tucked into a fold of the mountains, where the sun hit the earth at an angle that made everything glow. They'd found silver lilies growing there, flowers that seemed to shimmer with their own light. They'd made love in that valley under the open sky, surrounded by those impossible flowers. Cassian had woven one into her hair and called her his moonlight, his anchor, his always. I remember, she whispered. Find them again. His eyes were already starting to glaze over, the fun rolling back in like a tide. The silver flowers, they grow where the earth remembers, where light meets shadow. Find them, Issa. They'll show you. They'll show you. His voice trailed off. The clarity bled away. He blinked, looked around as if confused about where he was, why he was standing in the garden in his nightclothes. Cassian. Isadora tried one more time, but he was already turning away, shuffling back toward the east wing with the uncertain gait of a man who didn't trust his own feet. In moments, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving her alone in the garden. Isadora pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting down the howl of grief that wanted to tear out of her chest. She couldn't break now, couldn't afford the luxury of falling apart. She ran, the forest swallowed her whole. Trees that had stood for centuries closed ranks behind her branches, reaching overhead to blot out the moon. The underbrush tore at what remained of her dress, caught in her hair, scratched bloody lines across her arms. She ran until her lungs burned, until the muscles in her legs turned to water, until the persistent ache in her lower back became a constant grinding pain that made every step an agony. She ran until she couldn't run anymore. When she finally collapsed, it was near dawn. The sky was turning that bruised purple color that comes before true sunrise, and Isadora's body had reached the absolute limit of its endurance. She fell more than sat her back against the rough bark of an ancient oak, her breath coming in ragged gasps that burned her throat. The babies were moving constantly now, restless, agitated, as if they could sense that something monumental was happening, that the world was shifting beneath them. Isadora placed both hands on her belly and tried to send them calm, tried to tell them, without words, that everything would be all right, even though she had no idea if that was true. In the growing light, she could see she'd reached some kind of clearing. No, not a clearing. A valley. Small, secluded, tucked between two ridges of forested hills, like a secret being kept by the earth itself. The trees here were different, older, their branches twisted into shapes that suggested great age and patient wisdom. And at the center of the valley, barely visible in the pre-dawn gloom, stood a small cottage. Smoke rose from its chimney in a thin, steady stream. Behind it, Isadora could make out the shape of a large chicken coop, and even from this distance, she could hear the soft, sleepy sounds of hens settling into their morning routine. She tried to stand. Her legs refused. The pain in her back had spread, becoming something deeper, more insistent, something that felt less like exhaustion and more like the beginning of something else. Not yet, she thought desperately. Please, not yet. It's too soon. But her body had its own timeline, its own priorities. The babies had decided after 8 months in the dark that this was the moment. This was the place. Isadora crawled. It was all she could manage. Hands and knees through the damp grass, across the uneven ground, toward that cottage, with its promise of warmth and shelter. She made it perhaps 30 feet before her strength gave out completely. She collapsed into the dry hay and dirt beneath the overhang of the chicken coop, her body curling instinctively around her belly. The smell of feathers and grains surrounded her. Somewhere above her head, chickens murmured their sleepy disapproval at this intrusion. Isadora closed her eyes just for a moment, just to gather her strength. That's when she heard the voice. "Well, Prudence, what do we have here?" Isadora's eyes flew open. Standing over her was a woman who looked like she'd been carved from oak and iron will. 60-something years old with silver hair, pulled back in a severe bun, and eyes that missed absolutely nothing. She wore a stained apron and practical boots, and there was a fat brown chicken tucked under one arm like a disapproving advisor. "Keep your feathers on," the woman said to the chicken. "It's not a fox, it's a—" She trailed off, taking in Isadora's torn silk dress, her mud-caked hair, her swollen belly. Oh, my heavens." Isadora tried to speak, to explain, to ask for help. What came out was a low animal sound of pain as another contraction hit stronger than the last. The woman Agnes, Isadora would learn later, didn't hesitate. She set the chicken down with a firm, "Stay, Prudence," and dropped to her knees beside Isadora with a grace that belied her age. "How far apart?" Agnes asked, her hands already assessing, checking, making quick professional judgments. I didn't," Isadora gasped. "It's too soon. 8 months. They're coming whether they're ready or not, girl. That's how babies work. They pick their own time." Agnes looked into Isadora's face, and something in her expression softened. "You ran from something bad, didn't you?" Isadora could only nod. "And whatever you're carrying is precious enough to risk dying in a chicken coop rather than go back." Another nod. Agnes made a decision. Isadora could see it happen, could watch this stranger choose to help without knowing the story, without asking for explanations or assurances. "Right then," Agnes slipped her arms under Isadora's shoulders. "Let's get you inside before Prudence has a fit about the mess. She's very particular about her coop." The chicken in question made an indignant sound. "Oh, hush," Agnes told it. "This is more important than your breakfast schedule." Getting Isadora into the cottage was a blur of pain and movement. Agnes was stronger than she looked, and she'd clearly done this before moving a laboring woman with the efficiency of long practice. The cottage interior was small but clean, with herbs hanging from the rafters and a fire already burning in the hearth. Agnes got Isadora onto a bed near the fire, covered her with quilts that smelled like lavender and wood smoke. "My name's Agnes," the woman said, moving around the room with purpose, gathering supplies. "And before you ask, yes, I talk to my chickens. And no, I don't care if you think that's strange. Prudence gives better advice than most humans I've met." Despite everything, despite the pain and the fear and the impossible situation, Isadora felt the corner of her mouth twitch. Almost a smile. "Good," Agnes said, catching it. "A woman who can still find humor while birthing in a stranger's house is a woman who's going to survive this. Now let's see about bringing these babies into the world properly." The labor lasted through the morning and into the afternoon. Agnes worked with the calm competence of someone who'd delivered hundreds of babies, talking Isadora through each contraction, each push, each moment of doubt when it seemed like it would never end. "That's it. Breathe through it. Good. You're doing beautifully. Yes, I know it hurts. Anyone who says childbirth is beautiful has never actually done it. It's brutal and messy and worth every second. Another one coming. Here we go." The first sound that broke through the haze was sharp and high. Not a human cry. A yip. The sound a young wolf makes when it's startled or scared, or taking its first breath in a world full of new sensations. Agnes held up a small, wriggling form. A wolf pup barely bigger than her 2 hands. Its fur was pure white, so clean it almost seemed to glow in the firelight. "A son," Agnes whispered, and there was something in her voice Isadora had never heard before. "Oh, a silver-furred prince." She placed him on Isadora's chest. The pup was warm and possibly soft, his tiny paws already padded and strong. His eyes were closed, his nose twitching as he sought his mother's scent. "Hello," Isadora breathed. "Hello, little one." She didn't have time for more. The second pup followed quickly. This one was mahogany brown, a rich, deep color like earth after rain. Then came the third and fourth twins, both charcoal gray with white tips on their ears. The fifth was pure black, a shadow made solid. And the sixth, the smallest of the litter, was a pale brown that reminded Isadora of clay in sunlight. 6 wolf pups, 6 sons, 6 small furry bodies piling against Isadora's chest, their combined warmth a shield against the cold world outside. Agnes stared at them, her face working through several emotions at once. Surprise, yes, But not fear, not disgust, just a deep settling acceptance of the impossible. 63 years, she said finally. I've lived 63 years, delivered more babies than I can count, and I have never seen anything like this. She looked at Isadora. What are you, girl? I was the Luna, Isadora said softly. Queen of the Northern Kingdom, wife to the Alpha King. Now I'm just a woman trying to keep her children safe. Luna, Agnes tested the word. Wolf-blooded royalty. That explains the pups, but not why you're here instead of in a palace. The palace wanted me dead, or close enough to it. Agnes nodded slowly as if this made perfect sense. Always the way, isn't it? Power-hungry men and the women who get in their way. She tucked a blanket more securely around the pile of pups. Well, you're safe here. This valley has a way of keeping secrets. Isadora wanted to ask what she meant, but exhaustion was pulling at her like a tide. She'd been running on pure adrenaline for hours. Now with her children born and safe, her body was demanding payment. Her eyes drifted closed. She thought she heard Agnes moving around, the soft clink of glass, the whisper of herbs being mixed. Then the older woman's hand was on her forehead, gentle and cool. Rest now, Agnes said. I'll watch over them. I'll watch over all of you. Isadora slept. She woke to the sound of church bells, distant, mournful, echoing across the miles from the capital. Funeral bells, the kind that rang when someone important had died. She knew without being told that they were ringing for her. Agnes was sitting by the fire. The white pup, Silver Isadora, had already started calling him, in her mind curled in her lap. The other 5 were sleeping in a nest of blankets near the hearth, their small sides rising and falling in perfect synchronization. Been ringing for an hour, Agnes said quietly, not looking away from the fire. Whole kingdoms in mourning, I'd wager. The beloved Luna lost in a tragic fire. How long was I asleep? Through the night and most of the morning. It's near noon now. Agnes finally looked at her. You needed it. Body's been through hell. Isadora sat up slowly, every muscle protesting. The pups in the blanket nest stirred at the movement, their small heads lifting, noses twitching. They knew her scent. They knew she was their mother. I have to hide, Isadora said. They'll send scouts. They'll search. They'll search the forest, yes, and they'll find nothing because they're looking in the wrong place. Agnes stroked Silver's head with one finger. This valley, it's not on any map, girl. Not anymore. It used to be centuries ago, but it fell off. Forgotten. Dismissed as a legend or a mistake in the old cartography. Why? Agnes was quiet for a moment. Then she stood still, cradling Silver, and walked to the window. Come here, I want to show you something. Isadora pulled herself out of bed, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. She joined Agnes at the window, looking out over the small valley. In the daylight, she could see it properly. The cottage sat at the heart of a natural bowl in the hills, surrounded by forest on all sides. But beyond the chicken coop, past Agnes's small vegetable garden, there was something else. A field of white stones. Not stones, markers, gravestones. 13 of them, Agnes said softly. 13 women who came here over the centuries. All of them running, and all of them pregnant or newly delivered. All of them betrayed by men who should have protected them. Isadora felt something cold settle in her stomach. What happened to them? Some healed and moved on, started new lives far from the kingdoms that tried to erase them. Others stayed here, built lives in hiding, raised their children in peace. Agnes's voice dropped even lower. And some gave everything they had to this place. Their strength, their essence, their very lives. They poured it into the earth, into the stone, into the water that runs beneath. That's why this valley disappeared from the maps, girl. It didn't want to be found. Not by men like the one you're running from. They blessed it, Isadora whispered, turned it into a sanctuary. More than that, they made it alive, aware. This place chooses who finds it. It chose you. Agnes turned to face her. You felt it, didn't you, in the forest? The pull toward this direction, the sense that you needed to come here even when your body was ready to give up. Isadora had felt it. In the darkest part of her run, when she was certain she'd die in the woods, she'd felt something guiding her. A presence that wasn't quite a voice, but wasn't quite silence either. Come this way, safety this way. Your children need to be born here. What were they, Isadora asked, those 13 women? Lunas, every single one. Agnes's smile was sad and knowing. You're not the first queen to be cast aside, Isadora. You're not even the first Luna to flee to this valley pregnant with wolf pups and a price on her head. You're just the latest in a long line of women who chose survival over surrender. The white pup in Agnes's arms stirred. His eyes opened for the first time, and instead of the cloudy blue of a newborn, they were gold. Clear, deep gold that seemed to hold centuries. And Isadora heard a voice in her mind. Not words exactly, more like a feeling that carried meaning. Mother, we've been waiting. She gasped, stumbling backward. Did you hear that? Agnes looked down at the pup. Oh yes, Prudence warned me one of them would be special. She has a sense for these things. Silver continued to stare at Isadora with those impossible eyes. The voice came again, stronger this time. We are old souls in young forms. We carry the memory of what came before. The 13 who blessed this place, they linger here still. They guided you to us, and we will help you reclaim what was stolen. You're barely hours old, Isadora breathed. We have been waiting centuries to be born. Time means different things to wolves than to humans, Mother. We knew you would come. We knew you would need us. That is why we chose this moment to enter the world. Agnes set Silver down carefully on the floor. The pup took 2 wobbly steps toward Isadora, then sat his tail curling around his paws in a gesture that looked far too dignified for a newborn. Well, Agnes said dryly, this explains why Prudence has been acting strange all week. She knew we were about to get company of the magical variety. She looked at Isadora. Can you hear him too? Or is it just the mother bond? I hear him. Isadora knelt down, bringing herself eye level with Silver. And all of you, I can hear all 6 of you, can't I? In the blanket nest, 5 small heads lifted. 5 sets of eyes opened, ranging from amber to deep brown to gray. And Isadora felt it, the connection blooming like flowers opening to sun. 6 distinct presences, 6 unique voices, all connected to her through bonds that went deeper than blood. Yes, Mother, we are here, we are yours, and you are ours. The mahogany pup Amber, she thought and felt his pleased acknowledgement of the name, spoke next. His voice felt warm like sunlight on skin. The man who poisoned our father, the one who tried to erase you. He does not understand what he has awakened. The old magic runs through us. We are not children to be shaped and controlled. We are guardians, and we have been preparing for this battle for a very long time. Battle, Isadora repeated. The word felt heavy. Agnes put a hand on her shoulder. Not today, girl. Today you rest. Today you heal. Today you learn to be a mother to 6 impossible children. She smiled. The reckoning can wait. It's patient. It's been waiting for centuries. A few more days won't matter. Isadora looked at the 6 pups, her sons, these miraculous beings who were so much more than they should have been. Then she looked at Agnes, this stranger who had become an anchor in a world gone mad. And finally she looked out the window at the valley, the 13 graves, the earth that had chosen to protect her. How long do I have? She asked. Before they find this place. They won't, Agnes said with absolute certainty. Not unless the valley wants them to. And it won't. Not while you're here, not while you're under its protection. She moved toward the kitchen, already pulling out bread and cheese and dried meat. Now sit, eat. You just gave birth to 6 magical wolf children. Your body needs fuel, and those pups will need feeding soon enough. Isadora obeyed, sinking into a chair by the fire. The exhaustion was bone deep, but beneath it she could feel something else starting to grow. Not hope exactly, something harder, more dangerous. Purpose. Silver patted over and placed his paws on her knee, looking up at her. Rest now, Mother. Heal. Grow strong. The 13 who came before left us gifts. Knowledge, power, ways to fight that do not require claws or teeth. When the time comes, we will teach you. We will show you how to become what he never expected. What's that? Isadora asked, though she thought she already knew the answer. Silver's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile on a human face. On a wolf pup, it looked like something else entirely. Dangerous. Outside, the funeral bells continued to ring, telling the kingdom that their Luna was dead, that the beloved queen had been lost to fire and ash and tragedy. In the cottage at the heart of the hidden valley, Isadora listened to those bells and felt something cold and certain settle in her chest. Let them ring, she thought. Let them mourn. Let Rowan believe his plan worked. The dead couldn't threaten him. The dead couldn't plan. The dead couldn't gather strength and wait for the perfect moment to rise. But Isadora wasn't dead. She was just getting started. Agnes set a plate of food in front of her. Prudence the chicken hopped up onto the table and made a soft approving cluck. Prudence says you're going to be fine, Agnes translated. She also says you need to eat more. Nursing mothers need their strength, especially when they're nursing future legends. Isadora looked at the chicken. The chicken looked back with what could only be described as stern approval. And for the first time in months, Isadora laughed. It was a small sound, fragile and uncertain, but it was real. It was hers. The six pups gathered around her feet, pressing close, offering their warmth and their presence and their fierce, impossible love. The funeral bells rang, and in the valley that didn't exist in the cottage that couldn't be found, Isadora began the work of transforming from a queen who had been erased into something far more dangerous. A mother with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The first morning after the birth, Isadora woke to Agnes arguing with a chicken. I don't care what you think, Prudence. The woman needs rest. A pause. Yes, I know the bed is usually for drying herbs. No, we're not moving her to the floor. Another pause. You predicted 6. You're very clever. Now go tell the others to keep the noise down. Prudence clucked indignantly and stalked away. Isadora opened her eyes to morning light streaming through the cottage windows. The 6 pups were piled on her chest, warm and breathing. In sleep, they looked like ordinary wolf pups, their magical nature hidden beneath fur and innocence. But she could feel them in her mind. 6 distinct presences that hummed with life and something far older than their few hours on Earth. Agnes appeared in the doorway. Good, you're awake. How's the pain? Everywhere, Isadora admitted, but I'm alive. That you are, and those 6 are healthy as can be. Agnes moved to the fireplace, stirring something that smelled like oats and honey. Prudence says they've been sleeping like angels. But then most newborns can't have telepathic conversations with their mothers. Isadora carefully shifted the pup sitting up with a wince. Silver's eyes opened immediately, that deep gold gaze fixing on her face. Good morning, Mother. The others are waking. They're hungry. As if on cue, 5 more pairs of eyes opened. The pups stretched, yawned, and looked at her with expressions that suggested far more awareness than any newborn should possess. They need to eat, Isadora said. Agnes nodded. Figured as much. You'll need to rotate them, keep track of who's fed. But first you eat. The next hours fell into a rhythm. Feed the pups, eat something herself, sleep when the pups slept. The world narrowed to these simple tasks, and Isadora found a strange peace in the routine. Agnes moved through the cottage with practiced efficiency, managing chickens and cooking and patient care. She talked constantly, a running commentary that was somehow comforting in its normalcy. By the 3rd day, Isadora could walk without pain. By the 5th day, she could make it outside to the porch, where she sat in Agnes's rocking chair and watched the 6 pups explore their new world. They were growing. Not at the slow pace of human babies, but with the accelerated development of wolf shifters. By the end of the first week, they were the size of house cats, their legs long enough to run, their coordination improving by the hour. And their personalities were beginning to shine through. Silver was the leader, serious and thoughtful. He was the first to investigate new things, the first to notice when something was wrong. His gift went beyond telepathy. He could sense truth and lies, could feel the intentions behind words. Amber was warmth made flesh. His fur seemed to radiate heat, and when he curled up against Isadora's side, the chronic ache in her muscles would ease. He was the comforter, the one who sensed emotional pain and tried to soothe it. Ash and Frost were inseparable, the gray twins who moved as one unit. Ash could blend into shadows in a way that shouldn't be possible for something so young. Frost's presence was sharp and cold, easy to sense even with eyes closed. Together they were Scout's protectors. Shadow was the quiet one, the observer. He rarely made sounds, preferring to communicate through the mental bond. His gift was empathy taken to an extreme. He could read emotions like text, could sense when Isadora was spiraling into dark thoughts before she recognized it herself. And Clay, the smallest, was the healer. When Isadora's hands cracked from learning to work the farm, Clay would lick them, and the skin would knit together faster than natural. 6 gifts, Agnes observed one evening, 6 different ways to help and protect. Almost like they were designed for this. They were, Isadora said softly. The first month passed in a blur of discovery and adjustment. Isadora learned to milk Agnes's goat, to collect eggs from hens, who pecked her hands to tell the difference between herbs that healed and herbs that poisoned. Her hands developed calluses. Her body, once decorative, became functional. Agnes taught her everything with patient persistence, never condescending, never treating her like a pampered queen. You're stronger than you think, Agnes said one afternoon as they hung laundry. The 6 pups were hunting grasshoppers in the tall grass. Palace life makes you forget your own strength. I always thought I was strong, Isadora said. I stayed with Cassian through the worst of it. Everyone told me to leave. That is strength. Agnes handed her another pin. Loving someone through their illness takes more courage than most battles. But there's another kind of strength too. The kind that knows when to leave, when to save yourself and the ones depending on you. I didn't want to leave him. I know, girl, but you did. And that's why these six are alive instead of being raised by a man who would have turned them into weapons. Agnes paused. I lost my daughter to childbirth 30 years ago. Lost my husband to grief not long after. He couldn't bear it. The loss ate him from the inside until there was nothing left but the shape of a man. Isadora had known Agnes had suffered loss, but hearing it spoken aloud was different. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm telling you because I want you to understand something. Agnes looked at her directly. Staying with someone through illness is love. But sometimes love means survival, means choosing life over death even when it feels like betrayal. My husband chose grief over living, and I had to choose whether to follow him or keep going. You chose to keep going. I chose chickens and a farm and talking to Prudence. Agnes's smile was sad, but real. Not everyone would call that strength, but it got me through 30 years and it put me here in this moment able to help you. So I call it strength, and I call your choice to run the same thing. That night, Isadora wrote a letter she would never send. My love, she wrote by firelight while the pups slept. I don't know if you can still hear me. I don't know if any part of you remembers who I am, who we were. But I need you to know that I'm alive. Our children are alive. 6 sons, each one carrying a piece of your strength and my stubbornness. I left you, but I didn't abandon you. I saved the future we made together. And somehow I'm going to find a way to bring you back from the darkness Rowan put you in. I don't know how yet, I just know that I will. Wait for me in whatever clear spaces you can find. I'm coming back for you. She burned the letter in the fireplace, watching the words turn to ash and smoke. The second month brought autumn. The trees surrounding the valley turned gold and crimson. The pups were the size of medium dogs, now their gangly proportions settling into something sleeker, more powerful. They could run for hours. They hunted rabbits in the forest, working together with coordination that suggested training rather than instinct. Silver directed them with barely perceptible signals, and the others responded instantly. They're not going to stay this small for long, Agnes observed. By winter, they'll be the size of grown wolves. They'll need more space, Isadora said. The valley will provide. It always does. Agnes was quiet for a moment. Isadora, there's something I need to show you, something I've been putting off. But I think it's time. She led Isadora past the chicken coop, past the vegetable garden, to the field of 13 grave markers. Up close, Isadora could see that each stone was different, carved with symbols that seemed to shift in the fading light. Agnes stopped at the first grave, the oldest one, the stone weathered almost smooth. Her name was Lyanna, Agnes said softly. First Luna to flee here nearly 600 years ago, betrayed by her husband's advisor. She was pregnant with twins when she arrived. She gave birth here alone in the middle of winter. Did she survive? For a while, raised her sons in this valley. When they were grown, they left to make their fortunes. And she stayed here old and content, and when she died, she asked to be buried in the earth that had protected her. They walked the line of graves, and Agnes told the stories she knew. 13 women, 13 betrayals, 13 different endings, some happy, some tragic, all of them defiant. At the last grave, the newest one, Agnes stopped. This was Vera. She came here 40 years ago when I was just a young woman starting this farm. Pregnant, terrified, running from a king who wanted her dead. What happened to her? She gave birth to a daughter, beautiful little thing. Agnes's voice grew thick. But the birth went wrong. I was here, I helped, but I was young and inexperienced. I couldn't save her. Isadora's breath caught. Your daughter. No, but I raised her like she was. Vera lived long enough to ask me to take care of her baby. And I did. For 18 years I had a daughter. Then she decided she wanted to see the world beyond these hills. Agnes wiped her eyes. She died giving birth to her first child, just like her mother, and her husband couldn't bear it. So I lost them both. Agnes, don't. Agnes held up a hand. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because every woman in this graveyard faced a choice. Stay and hide or go back and fight. Some chose one, some chose the other. There's no wrong answer, Isadora. Just different kinds of courage. That night, Isadora lay awake. The pups were piled around her, their dreams fragmenting through the bond. They were happy, safe, growing strong. She could stay here. Raise them in the valley, teach them everything Agnes knew. They could have a good life, a quiet life. But in the quiet of the night, she could feel Cashin. That bond between mates, the one that survived distance and poison and even madness. It pulled at her like a tide. He was still there, still lost in the fog, still waiting, and Rowan was still there too, still ruling in Cassian's name, still poisoning him. Silver lifted his head. You're thinking about going back. I'm thinking about a lot of things. The others need you to stay. They're young. They need their mother. And your father needs me too. Silver was quiet. Then, we always knew you would go back eventually. The 13 Lunas who guide us, they showed us your path. It divides ahead. You can choose peace and safety here, or you can choose the harder thing. What's the harder thing? Justice, truth, restoration, and the risk of losing everything in the attempt. Isadora looked at the other 5 pups. What do you choose, all of you? If this were your decision, we would fight, Amber said. We were born to protect you, but we cannot protect you from your own heart. We would be strategic, Ash added. Rushing in without preparation is how people die. I would want to understand all the risks first, Shadow said quietly. Clay simply sent a wave of emotion. Love, support, trust. No pressure then, Isadora murmured. Silver rested his head on her chest. The valley will keep us safe for now, Mother. We have time. Not much, but some. Use it to decide who you want to be. The Luna who survived, or the Luna who reclaims what was stolen. 4 weeks into their sanctuary, Isadora was helping Agnes repair the chicken coop when Prudence made a sound she'd never heard before. A sharp staccato alarm that sent every chicken scattering. The 6 pups materialized from different corners of the property, forming a protective semicircle around Isadora. Silver's hackles were raised, his lips pulled back from teeth that had grown sharp and white. Someone's coming. Through the forest. Moving fast. Injured. Agnes grabbed her walking stick. How many? One man, Ash reported. Alone. And, Mother, I think you know him. They waited tense and ready. The pups were half grown now, each one capable of serious damage if needed. What stumbled out of the tree line was a man in a torn guard uniform, his face bruised and swollen. He collapsed to his knees at the edge of Agnes's garden, looking up at Isadora with eyes that held equal parts relief and devastation. My Luna, he gasped. Thank the old Gus, you're alive. Isadora ran to him, the pups flanking her. Up close, she could see the extent of his injuries, deep cuts across his ribs, burns on his forearms, the kind of damage that came from interrogation. Finn, what happened? Rowan. The name came out like a curse. He caught me smuggling medicine to the king. Real medicine, not the poison. I thought I was careful, but... He coughed and blood flecked his lips. He had me beaten. Asked me what I knew, who I was working with. I told him nothing, my Luna. I swear it. Agnes was already there helping Isadora get Finn into the cottage. Clay immediately pressed against the wounded man's side, his healing gift working to knit the worst of the damage. You shouldn't have come here, Isadora said, even as she tended his wounds. If they followed you... They didn't, I made sure. And I had to come. Finn grabbed her wrist. You have to hear this. You have to know what's happening. Tell me. The king, Cassian, he's worse. Finn's voice broke. He doesn't speak anymore. Doesn't eat unless forced. Just sits and stares at nothing. The physicians say he's fading. But it's not madness, my Luna. It's the poison. Rowan's been increasing the doses. Isadora felt something cold settle in her chest. How long does he have? I don't know. Weeks, maybe. Maybe less. Finn looked at her with desperate eyes. There's more. Rowan set a date. 10 days from now. New moon. He's having himself crowned as regent. He's already ruling in Cassian's name. Why make it official? Because 3 days after the coronation, he's planning to have the king executed. The world seemed to stop. Executed, she repeated. He's going to call it mercy. Put it to the council as a kindness ending the suffering of a mad king. The physicians will testify that there's no hope of recovery. The nobles will agree it's the humane choice. And Cassian will die, and Rowan will transform from regent to king. Agnes made a sound that might have been a curse or a prayer. Prudence ruffled her feathers. Isadora stood, walked to the window, looked out at the valley that had become her sanctuary. Behind her, she could feel the pups gathering their presence, a solid wall of support. There's something else, Finn said quietly. In one of his clear moments, the king told me to tell you if I ever found you. He said to tell you about the silver flowers, that he hid something where light meets shadow. He said you would understand. The silver flowers, the lily garden, the place where she and Cassian had discovered something impossible and beautiful. Evidence. He'd hidden evidence of Rowan's treason somewhere in that garden. He was trying to give me a weapon, Isadora whispered. Even in the fog, some part of him was still fighting. She turned to face Agnes, Finn, the 6 pups who watched her. I have to go back. I know, Agnes said simply. I have to save him. I know that too. And I have to stop Rowan before he can hurt anyone else. Agnes nodded. The question isn't whether you're going back a girl. The question is how, and whether you survive the attempt. I'll help, Finn said immediately. I still have contacts in the guard, loyal men who hate what Rowan's done. We can get you inside, help you find the evidence. Evidence won't be enough, Isadora interrupted. Even if I can prove Rowan's been poisoning Cassian, it won't break the curse. Cassian will still be lost in the fog. Then what do you need, Agnes asked. Isadora looked at her. You told me once that this valley grows things that shouldn't exist. Silver lilies that glow with their own light. Herbs that heal wounds no medicine can touch. Is there anything here that could break through poison? Anything that could clear a mind that's been deliberately clouded? Agnes was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, walked to the window. There might be, she said finally, but it comes with a price. She led them outside past the chicken coop, past the graves, to a part of the valley Isadora had never explored. A small patch of earth surrounded by thorns so thick they formed a natural barrier. In the center of that protected space grew a single flower. It was like the silver lilies Isadora remembered, but different, larger, more luminous. Its petals seemed to hold light the way glass holds water. Moon silver lily, Agnes said. The true one, the original. It's been growing in this spot for 600 years, fed by the same earth that holds the 13 lunas. It can cure him. Isadora stepped closer. It can clear the fire, burn through any poison, any spell, any curse that clouds the mind. Agnes's voice was heavy, but the flower demands balance. It's not just medicine. It's magic. Old magic, the kind that requires sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? The person who picks it, who prepares it, who gives it to the one who needs healing, they have to offer something of equal value. A life for a life, a mind for a mind, an essence for an essence. Isadora felt cold. You're saying I would die to save him. Not necessarily die, but you would give something, years off your life maybe, memories. Your connection to your wolf. The magic decides what's fair payment. You don't get to choose. And if I refuse to pay, if I just take the flower, then it won't work. The magic knows intent, knows whether the sacrifice is willing or forced. Isadora stared at the flower. This close she could feel it humming alive. It knew she was there. It was waiting. There's something else you should know, Agnes continued. The valley, this whole place, it's alive because of the 13 lunas. They gave their essence to the earth when they died by choice to create this sanctuary. That's the real power here. The voluntary sacrifice of women who understood that sometimes love means giving everything. You want me to understand the choice I'm making, Isadora said. If I go back, if I use this flower, I might save Cassian. I might stop Rowan. But I will lose something. The magic will take its price. Isadora looked at the 6 pups. We cannot make this choice for you, Mother Silver said, but we will support whatever you decide. If you choose to fight, we fight with you. If you choose to stay, we stay. You are our mother. Our loyalty is absolute. And if the magic takes me, Isadora asked, if the price is my life, then we will honor your sacrifice by becoming what you hoped we would be, Amber said. Strong, compassionate, just. We will protect the valley as you protected us, Shadow added. We will remember you, Clay said simply, and make sure your story doesn't end with silence. Isadora turned to Finn. The evidence Cassian hid. You can find it. I can, Finn said. But my Luna, even with evidence, even with the flower, how do you plan to get close enough to Cassian to give it to him? Rowan keeps him guarded, keeps him isolated. I have 6 sons who can move through shadows, sense danger, and coordinate like a trained unit despite being barely 6 weeks old. Isadora felt something settle in her chest. Not peace, something harder. Purpose. I think we can manage an infiltration. She walked to the moon silver lily, knelt before it, placed her hand on the earth beside its stem. I don't know what you'll ask of me, she said to the flower, to the valley, to the 13 lunas. I don't know if I'm strong enough to pay the price, but I know I can't leave him there. Can't let Rowan win. Can't teach my sons that survival means abandoning the people we love when things get hard. The flower pulsed with light. So I'm asking, please give me the power to save him, and I'll pay whatever price you demand. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Agnes gasped, pointing at the ground around the lily. New shoots were emerging from the earth, small, delicate, but unmistakably the same species. 7 of them forming a circle around the original flower. It's never done that before, Agnes breathed. In 40 years, I've never seen it propagate. Silver padded forward, sniffed one of the new shoots. One for each of us, and one for you, Mother. The valley is giving you a gift, a way to save Father without losing yourself completely. What do you mean? The sacrifice doesn't have to come from one person. It can be shared. 7 of us, 7 flowers, 7 offerings to balance the magic. But we are old souls who chose this form, this family, this moment, Silver interrupted gently. We knew what we were agreeing to when we came, and we all choose this, together. One by one, the other pups stepped forward, each placing a paw beside one of the new shoots. We share the price, Amber said. 7 parts instead of 1 whole. We protect each other, she and Frost said in unison. We save our father, Shadow added. And we do it as a family, Clay finished. Agnes was crying. 63 years, she whispered, and I've never seen anything like this. The valley itself is choosing you, Isadora. Choosing your family. It's giving you a chance. Isadora looked at the 7 flowers, the 6 pups, the woman who had become so much more than a stranger with a chicken coop. How long do I have to prepare? The new shoots need 7 days to mature, Agnes said. After that, the essence needs 3 days to prepare, which gives you exactly 10 days. The same day as Rowan's coronation. The valley has a sense of timing, Agnes said. Prudence is going to be insufferable about this. She predicted you'd go back. Despite everything, Isadora laughed. That night, she wrote another letter she would never send. Cassian, I'm coming. I don't know if you can hear me across the distance. I don't know if any part of you still exists in the fog, but I'm coming anyway. Our sons are coming with me. 6 impossible children who carry old magic and new hope. Wait for me. Hold on to whatever fragments you can find. The silver flowers remember what you told me. Light meeting shadow. I understand now. I'm not the Luna who ran anymore. I'm the mother of 6 guardians, the student of a woman who survived 30 years of grief, the heir to 13 Lunas who chose sacrifice over surrender. I'm dangerous now, and I'm coming home. She burned the letter, watched the smoke rise and dissipate. Finn was sleeping in Agnes's spare room, his wounds healing thanks to Clay's gift. Agnes was on the porch checking on the chickens, but really giving Isadora space to think. The 6 pups were curled around her, their warmth a shield against the cold. 10 days, Silver sent. 10 days to prepare, to become ready for what comes next. Are you scared? Isadora asked them. Of course, Amber admitted. Fear is reasonable when facing danger. But we're more scared of losing you, Shadow added. Or Father, or each other. So we face the fear, Clay said. Together. Through the window, Isadora could see the 13 graves pale in the moonlight. 13 women who had stood at similar crossroads. 13 different choices. 13 different outcomes. But Isadora knew her answer, had always known it from the moment Finn stumbled into the valley with news of Cassian's approaching execution. She was going back, and she was bringing the dawn with her. The 7 moon-silver lilies bloomed at midnight on the 7th day. Isadora stood in the thorned garden, watching as each flower opened in perfect synchronization, their petals unfurling to release light that had nothing to do with the moon overhead. The original lily pulsed once, then settled into a steady glow. Agnes stood beside her, Prudence tucked under one arm. Never thought I'd see this in my lifetime. The valley choosing someone. The 6 pups sat in a semicircle around the flowers, each focused on the bloom that seemed to call to them. They were full-grown now, the size of adult wolves, their puppy awkwardness transformed into sleek, powerful grace. 6 weeks of accelerated growth driven by old magic and urgent purpose. But their eyes were the same, deep gold that held centuries. We harvest them at dawn, Isadora said. Agnes, you're sure about the preparation? I've been studying the old texts for 10 days straight. The 13 Lunas left detailed instructions. Agnes shifted, Prudence. 3 days to prepare the essence properly, which means you have exactly 10 days from tonight until Rowan's coronation. 10 days, Isadora repeated. 10 Lunas who blessed this valley before me. Magic has patterns it likes. Agnes looked at the 6 wolves. They're ready. The question is whether you're ready to let them risk themselves. Isadora watched Silver. A mother's never ready for that. But a Luna understands that sometimes the children have to fight the battles the parents started. We're not fighting, Mother Silver's voice came through. We're reckoning. There's a difference. Finn emerged from the cottage, moving easily now after days of Clay's healing. My contacts sent word the coronation preparations are in full swing. Security will be tight. Good, Isadora said. Tight security means patterns. Patterns mean predictability. She'd spent the past 10 days learning everything Finn knew about the palace's current operations. Guard rotations, servant schedules, where Cassian was being kept, how heavily he was guarded. You'll enter through the old drainage tunnels, Finn said. Same ones you escaped through. The six can scout ahead. And once we're inside, I'll create a distraction in the east wing, something that pulls the guards away. You'll have maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes to find Cassian, administer the cure, and pray it works. Isadora felt the weight of all the ways this could fail. And the evidence, the Lily Garden fountain, Rowan has guards posted nearby. Ash stepped forward. I can retrieve it, Shadow and I. We can move unseen even in daylight. It's too dangerous, Isadora started. Mother Frost interrupted gently. We're ready for this. She knew they were right, had watched them transform from playful pups into something coordinated, strategic, each one knowing their role. Tomorrow at dawn we harvest, Isadora said. 3 days to prepare the essence. Then we go home. Agnes cleared her throat. About that, I'm coming with you. Agnes, no. You're safer here. Girl, I didn't spend 10 days teaching you everything I know just to sit here wondering if it worked. Agnes's eyes were firm. Besides, you're going to need someone old and harmless looking who couldn't possibly be part of a royal infiltration. You're many things, Agnes. Harmless isn't one of them, which is exactly why it'll work. That night, Isadora couldn't sleep. The pups were restless too, their dreams fragmenting through the bond. She walked outside, letting the cool night air clear her head. The valley was beautiful in the moonlight. This place had saved her, had given her time to heal, to grow strong, to become something more than the terrified pregnant woman who'd collapsed in the chicken coop. You're saying goodbye, aren't you? Agnes joined her on the porch, 2 cups of tea in hand. Just in case, Isadora admitted. If something goes wrong, I wanted to remember what it felt like here. You're not going back to destroy, you're going back to clear the air. Agnes sipped her tea. And if the storm takes you, those 6 will carry on. They'll take what you taught them and build something better. That's what mothers do. We plant seeds that bloom after we're gone. You think the valley has a plan? I think the 13 Lunas who made this place had a plan. And I think you're part of it. The Luna who doesn't just survive, but who goes back. Who fights not with claws, but with truth. Dawn came too quickly and not fast enough. Isadora knelt in the thorn garden as the first light touched the valley. The 7 moon silver lilies seemed to sense the moment, their glow intensifying. Agnes stood beside her with a ceremonial knife, old and silver. The valley gave me this, found it buried near Lyanna's grave. Will it hurt them? Magic doesn't work like that. These flowers want to be harvested. They grew for this purpose. Isadora took the knife, feeling its weight, its age. She approached the first bloom. As the blade touched the stem, she felt it, a rush of warmth, of approval. The flower separated from its root with a whisper, and light poured from the cut stem like liquid gold before sealing itself. One by one, she harvested all 7. Each bloom remained perfect in her hands, as if time had stopped the moment they were cut. Agnes received each flower in a basket lined with blessed silk. Now comes the hard part, 3 days of preparation. The essence has to be made with perfect intention or it won't work. The cottage became a workshop. Agnes set up 7 glass vessels, each filled with spring water from the heart of the valley. She showed Isadora how to separate the petals, how to add herbs that amplified rather than diminished the magic. The 6 wolves watched, learning. This is alchemy, Agnes explained, not chemistry. The intention matters as much as the ingredients. You're not just making medicine, you're making possibility. On the 2nd day, Finn's contacts sent word. The coronation was proceeding as planned. Cassian was being prepared for his final public appearance. Rowan wanted the kingdom to see that the decision to end the king's life was a mercy. 3 more days, Isadora murmured, watching the essence slowly take form in the 7 vessels. Each one glowed with a different shade. Silver's was pure white gold. Amber's was warm orange. Ash and Frost were twin grays. Shadow's was deep indigo. Clay's was earthy brown shot through with green. And hers held all the colors at once, shifting and blending like sunset over water. That's the master essence, Agnes said, the one that binds the others. You give this to Cassian first. It opens the door. Then the six follow with theirs, each one strengthening the effect, sharing the burden of the magic's price. What will the price be? Agnes looked at her for a long moment. I don't know, the magic decides. But I can tell you this, whatever it takes, it'll be something you can afford to lose. The valley isn't cruel, it's just… On the third day, the essence was complete. 7 vials of liquid light, each one warm to the touch. Agnes sealed them with wax blessed by the 13 graves. These will work, she said with absolute certainty, but only if given with love, only if the sacrifice is willing. That night, they prepared for the journey. Isadora dressed in simple servant's clothes, her posture deliberately hunched. She looked nothing like a queen. The 6 wolves would travel separately through the forest, arriving from different directions. They were large enough now that seeing all 6 together would raise alarm. Agnes packed food, medical supplies, and stubborn determination. Prudence is staying here to guard the valley. Isadora looked at the chicken, who looked back with severe disapproval. Thank you, Prudence, for everything. The chicken made a soft sound before turning and stalking back to her coop. She'll miss you, Agnes translated. She'll never admit it, but she will. They left at midnight. The valley seemed to hold its breath as they walked away. Isadora looked back once, seeing the cottage with its curl of smoke, the chicken coop, the field of 13 graves, the thorned garden where 7 flowers had bloomed. Then she turned forward and didn't look back again. The journey to the capital took 2 days. The 6 wolves ranged ahead and behind invisible guardians. As the city walls came into view, Isadora felt her heart begin to race. She'd run from this place 6 weeks ago, certain she would die if she stayed. Now she was walking back into danger with 7 vials of magic and a plan that had 1,000 ways to fail. Finn led them to a safe house on the outskirts, a small room above a cooper's shop. Rest tonight, Finn said. Tomorrow the coronation begins at noon. The palace will be chaos. That's when we move. Isadora stood at the narrow window looking out at the palace spires. Somewhere in there, Cassian was preparing for what Rowan had told him would be his final public appearance. Mother Silver's voice came through the bond. We've scouted the drainage tunnels. The path is clear. Ganfrost have located the Lily Garden fountain. The evidence is there. Can you retrieve it without being seen? Already done. Shadow is bringing it now. Within the hour, Shadow materialized, something clutched carefully in his jaws. A small metal box waterproofed with wax. Isadora's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were papers, correspondence, bills of sale for silver or receipts for payments to guards, detailed notes in Rowan's own hand. He documented everything. Isadora breathed. He was so certain he'd won that he kept records. That night, none of them slept. They went over the plan again and again. Finn would enter openly. Agnes would talk her way past the gate guards. Isadora and the 6 wolves would use the drainage tunnels. The timing had to be perfect. Dawn came. The city bells began to ring. The kingdom prepared to witness the transition of power from a mad king to his capable brother. They didn't know they were about to witness something else entirely. Isadora entered the drainage tunnel at precisely 10 in the morning. The 6 wolves moved with her fluid and silent in the darkness. The tunnel was exactly as she remembered, but this time she wasn't running away. This time she was running toward. They emerged in the palace gardens near the east wing. The gardens were empty, all the servants pulled to the main courtyards. Through the bond, Isadora felt Finn's signal. The distraction was in place. 10 minutes. The king's chambers were in the north tower now. Rowan had moved him, isolated him. The door was guarded by 2 men, Shadow and Ash Silver sent. Now, the 2 wolves moved so fast they were barely visible. One moment the guards were standing alert. The next they were unconscious on the floor. Isadora stepped over them and opened the door. The room was sparse, clinical. A bed, a chair, a window with bars. And sitting in that chair staring at nothing was her husband. He'd aged years in 6 weeks. His hair was completely white now, his face gaunt, his hands trembling. He wore coronation robes, but they hung on him like a costume. Cassian, Isadora whispered. He didn't respond, didn't even turn his head. She crossed the room, knelt before him, took his cold hands in hers. Cassian, it's me, it's Issa. I'm here, I came back. Nothing. Behind her, the 6 wolves entered silently. Silver approached, placed his paw on Cassian's knee. Father, we've been waiting. Cassian's eyes moved just slightly to look at the white wolf. Something flickered there deep beneath the fog. Isadora pulled out the first vial of the master essence. Her hands were shaking. This is going to bring you back, she said, uncorking the vial. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? His eyes found hers. For just a moment she saw him, the real Cassian. Then his lips moved. Isa, you're alive. I'm alive. Our sons are alive, and we're going to bring you home. She lifted the vial to his lips. He drank without resistance, the liquid light pouring down his throat. The magic activated. It was like watching a storm clear. The fog in Cassian's eyes began to thin, to fracture, to burn away. He gasped, his whole body going rigid, his hands gripping hers with sudden, desperate strength. Now Silver commanded. All of us, the 6 wolves, moved as one. Each approached, each placed their paw on some part of Cassian, each sent their essence through the bond. Isadora felt it when the price was taken. Not all at once, but in small, bearable pieces. A memory from Silver, a year from Amber, strength from Ash and Frost, emotion from Shadow. And from Clay, his healing touch reduced to something more normal. And from Isadora, the price was steeper. The magic took her connection to her wolf. Not completely, but enough that she would never shift again. Never run on 4 paws, never hunt with pack instinct. She felt it leave her, that ancient part of herself, and she let it go without fighting. Small price for this. For Cassian's eyes clearing, for his breathing, steadying, for his hands in hers, growing warm and present. Isa, he said, and his voice was his own. Clear. Whole. Isa, you came back. I told you I would. He looked at the 6 wolves, understanding dawning. Our children, the 6 you were carrying, they're extraordinary, Isadora said. And they're your sons, and they just helped save your life. Cassian reached out with trembling hands, touching Silver's head. I remember. Not everything the poison took so much, but I remember the important things. I remember you. I remember love. Then we have to stop him. The coronation, we know, that's why we're here. Outside bells began to ring. The ceremony was starting. Cassian stood, his legs weak but holding. He looked at Isadora, really looked at her, and she saw him processing the changes. You're different, he said softly. I'm a mother now, and I learned to talk to chickens. Despite everything, he smiled. I have so many questions. Later, right now we have a coronation to interrupt. They moved through the palace like ghosts. The 6 wolves scouted ahead, their gifts, allowing them to sense guards to find paths that shouldn't exist. Finn met them near the Great Hall, Agnes beside him. The old woman took one look at Cassian and nodded. Good. You look substantially less dead than reports suggested. Also, you have excellent taste in wives. Any woman who talks to chickens is a friend of mine, Cassian said. Then his expression turned serious. Is the evidence ready? Finn held up the waterproofed box. Everything we need. We don't need to convince the council, Isadora said. We need to convince the kingdom, all of them. How? Finn asked. Silver stepped forward. Let me speak. Not just to minds, to hearts. The valley gave me this gift. Can you project to everyone in the hall? Isadora asked. Yes, but it will cost me. I'll use what remains of my essence. After this, the ancient part of me will fade. I'll become truly young. Silver, no, you've already paid. This is my choice, mother. I become just your son, just a pup who needs his mother. I choose this. The great hall was packed. Every noble in the kingdom stood in their finest clothes waiting to witness history. At the front, Rowan stood in ceremonial robes, gold and crimson, the crown on a velvet pillow beside him. He looked confident, triumphant. Beside him, an empty chair where Cassian should have been. Rowan's smile faltered. His eyes scanned the crowd. That's when the doors at the back of the great hall opened. Isadora walked through, first her head high. Behind her came Cassian, walking on his own, his eyes clear and sharp. And flanking them, 6 magnificent wolves moving with synchronized precision. The hall fell silent. Rowan's face went through several emotions. Shock, disbelief, fear, and finally, desperate calculation. Guards, he shouted. Seize them. The Mad King has escaped. He's dangerous. And that woman, that's an imposter pretending to be the dead Luna. No guards moved, because Agnes and Finn had spent the morning speaking quietly to the ones they knew, and those guards had spoken to others until enough truth had spread that no one was certain who to believe. Cassian walked forward, his steps steady. Hello, brother. I believe you have something that belongs to me. He gestured to the crown. Rowan's face twisted. You're mad. The whole kingdom knows you're mad. That's true, Cassian acknowledged. I couldn't remember my own name most days, because you've been poisoning me for over a year with silver dust mixed in my wine, severing my connection to my wolf, destroying my mind piece by piece. A murmur ran through the crowd. That's ridiculous, Rowan said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Why would I poison you? Because you wanted the crown. Isidora's voice cut through the hall. And you wanted our children, 6 royal heirs you could raise as your own weapons. The Luna is dead, Rowan protested. She died in a fire. You staged that fire, Cassian said. You had plans to imprison her, to let her give birth, then raise our children, while she rotted in a cell. Lies. Rowan was sweating now. Where's your proof? Finn stepped forward, holding the waterproofed box high. Here, your own correspondence. Bills of sale for silver ore. Receipts for payments to corrupt guards. Notes in your own hand. The king hid these before the fog took him completely. Rowan's eyes went to the box and something in his face cracked. That's not... It's exactly what it looks like, Cassian said. You documented everything, brother. Your arrogance became your downfall. The nobles were talking now, loud and angry. Rowan drew a knife from his robes, the blade long and cruel. I won't be taken. This kingdom needed a strong king, not a mad one. Strength isn't what you think it is, Isidora said quietly. Strength is what I did, running to save our children. Strength is what Cassian did, hiding evidence while his mind was being destroyed. You don't understand strength, Rowan. You only understand power. And there's a difference. Silver stepped forward, and Isidora felt him gather what remained of his ancient essence. When he spoke, everyone heard, not in their ears, in their souls. This man betrayed his brother, poisoned him, tried to erase a woman who loved faithfully through illness and fear. He would have raised us as weapons, never knowing we had a mother who loved us, a father who fought to protect us, even when he couldn't protect himself. The hall filled with Silver's truth. Not just words, but emotions, memories pulled from the evidence box, images of Rowan's plotting. He doesn't understand that power taken through lies always crumbles. That crown stolen never sit right. We are the 6 sons of Cassian and Isidora, born in exile, raised by a woman who talks to chickens and 13 ghosts who blessed a valley. And we choose truth over power, love over control, family over crown. Who do you choose? The question hung in the air. And one by one, the nobles made their choice. Some knelt to Cassian, others stood uncertain. But no one moved to support Rowan. The younger brother stood alone, his knife shaking in his hand. I could have made this kingdom great, he whispered. You would have made it empty, Cassian said. A kingdom without love is just geography and resources. It's not a home. The guards moved then, carefully taking the knife binding him. What happens to me now? Rowan asked, and for the first time he sounded young, scared. Cassian looked at him for a long moment. You'll be tried, judged, and then exile probably. Somewhere you can't hurt anyone else. I'm your brother, Rowan said, and it sounded like a plea. I know. That's why I'm not having you executed. But you're not my brother anymore. You killed that relationship when you chose the crown over family. As the guards led Rowan away, Cassian turned to face the assembled kingdom. He looked tired but present. I'm not ready to be crowned today, he said. I've been living in fog for months. I've lost time, memories, pieces of myself. I need time to heal. He turned to Isidora, took her hand. But I'm ready to say this. My wife is alive. Our children are alive. And this kingdom needs to change. What are you proposing? Lord Varric asked from the crowd. A new council, Isidora said. Not just nobles, common people, servants, farmers, women, those who understand what it means to struggle to survive. Agnes stepped forward. And there will be a sanctuary for women who've been betrayed, abused, cast aside. A place where they can heal, rebuild. You're going to change everything, another noble said. We're going to try, Isidora said, and you can help us or you can step aside. But either way, the change is coming. The transformation didn't happen overnight. There were trials, investigations, long discussions. Rowan was exiled to the borderlands. Some nobles supported the changes. Others left. And slowly new voices rose. Farmers, healers, women, filling the spaces with wisdom born of experience. Finn was named captain of the new guard. Agnes became the grand counselor. And the 6 wolves became symbols of the new kingdom. Not weapons, but guardians. Silver, true to his word, became truly young. The ancient essence faded. But he was happy, lighter, free. The others flourished. Amber worked with healers. Ash and Frost became scouts. Shadow trained counselors. Clay worked in the sanctuary. 5 years later, the kingdom had transformed completely. The palace doors were open. Common people walked its halls, brought petitions, sat in on hearings. The Luna Sanctuary had expanded to 3 locations. Agnes oversaw all of them. The 6 wolves, now fully grown and magnificent, had become legends. But to Isadora and Cassian, they were just their sons. Isadora stood in the room that had once been her prison. It was different now, light and open, filled with paintings from sanctuary women, crafts from common children. Agnes found her there. Thinking deep thoughts, the old woman asked, thinking about how far we've come. You built this, not just serve it, built. We built it, all of us, the 13 Lunas before me, you, the 6 boys, Cassian. What will you tell your daughter, Agnes asked, about all of this? Isadora smiled. My daughter, you're pregnant again, 2 months along. Isadora laughed. How did you know? 63 years of watching women. You have that look. Agnes smiled. A daughter, after 6 sons. Just one this time, the healer confirmed. They stood together, watching the garden through the window. Cassian was out there with the 6 wolves, all in human form, now teaching them about trade agreements. The boys looked bored. Silver kept making faces at Amber. Shadow was paying attention, but Ash and Frost were planning mischief. Clay had fallen asleep standing up. What will you tell your daughter, Agnes asked again, about what you went through? Isadora thought about the cellar and the tunnel and the chicken coop, about the valley and the graves and the moon-silver lilies, about the choice she'd made to go back to fight, to risk everything. I'll tell her the truth, that sometimes the world tries to erase you, that sometimes you have to run to survive. She paused. But I'll also tell her that running isn't the end of the story. It's just the middle. The end is what you build after. Who you become when the running stops and the real work begins. And what do you want her to become? Strong, kind, brave enough to make hard choices, wise enough to know when to fight and when to heal. Isadora smiled, and stubborn enough to talk back to chickens. That night, Isadora told her family about the pregnancy. The 6 wolves reacted exactly as predicted, immediate, overwhelming protectiveness. Silver declared he would personally guard her chambers. Amber insisted on regulating every room's temperature. Ash and Frost began mapping secure routes. Shadow announced he would screen all emotional environments. Clay offered constant health monitoring. I'm pregnant, not dying, Isadora said, laughing. You're carrying our sister, Silver said with utter seriousness. Nothing is too much protection for our sister. Cassian just smiled, holding Isadora close. I tried to warn you. Later, when the boys had finally been convinced to let them sleep, Cassian and Isadora lay in the darkness of their chamber. Do you think about the valley? Cassian asked. The quiet life you could have had there? Sometimes, but I don't miss it the way you might think. I'm grateful for what it gave me. Time to heal, space to become strong. Isadora turned to face him. But this is where I belong. Here, with you. Building something that matters. Building something that lasts, Cassian agreed. Not just for us, for everyone who comes after. Through the window, the moon shone bright and full, and if Isadora looked carefully, she could almost see the valley in the distance. The place that didn't exist on maps but existed in her heart. 13 graves holding 13 stories of women who'd faced impossible choices and made them anyway. And now Isadora's story would join that lineage. Not buried in the valley, but alive in the kingdom she'd helped transform. A story about a Luna who was erased and came back stronger, who chose truth over safety, who proved that the strongest thing a woman can do is refuse to disappear. Her daughter would know this story, would grow up understanding that strength comes in many forms, that sometimes survival is revolutionary, that love is both the softest and hardest thing you can choose. And someday when that daughter faced her own impossible choice, she would remember her mother's words. The world will try to erase you. Don't let it. Run if you must. Heal when you can. Then come back and build something beautiful from the ashes they tried to bury you in. That's what women do. That's what Lunas do. They bloom where they're planted, and they transform cursed ground into consecrated earth. They turn erasure into legacy, and they never ever disappear.